Oh, hey, that
Hey.
intro music got me.
We all wonder how to make big life-changing choices. Maybe you're wondering right now, what do I do in this career circumstance or this family or relationship circumstance? Sometimes you just can't decide very easily. I mean, between jobs, careers, family, all that kind of stuff. So if you can't make up your mind, we're going to give you some tips to help. That's what we're talking about today: making choices, making decisions, and how to make wise ones from a couple of dads.
A couple of dads. But that's why we are here. How to make wise decisions. I mean, making decisions is something that we have to do on a daily basis, but sometimes those decisions are huge and they are life changing. So how do we go from there? I mean, um, you know, last week, or was it last week? Yeah, last week, 2 weeks ago, after our last episode, we kind of made a decision, and that was
We did.
to,
I don't know
yeah,
if
I
it
mean,
was
kind of,
life altering, but
you never know, but it was
maybe it will be.
definitely,
Maybe it'll
it was
be.
definitely altering to this particular program.
I will
So,
explain that.
well, so after our usual decap, no, our recap of the episode, our discussion,
Decaf.
the decap,
I think
not
that's called like
kneecap.
a debrief usually.
Debrief, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So after our usual debrief, I decided, or we decided, we were kind of straying far from our original purpose, which was to get together, chat for a bit, talk about life, talk about our struggles in certain areas,
And more
and
practical stuff
and
and
really just get into
accountability.
the practical stuff and how to be accountable to each other, but by extension accountable to anybody who bothers to watch this little podcast. Who knows? I mean, maybe someday
I don't
people will
know. I
watch.
don't know if that will be. Anyway,
Actually, I
you
know
know
there
what
are
we
people
forgot to
watching,
say?
and I want to say I thank those who are watching. I want to thank you guys because I know you're here. You may not be watching now, but you'll be watching later, and that's all that matters.
There are some, yes.
Yes.
Uh, who are we? We are Dads Save the Internet. We are a couple of dads. We're obviously brothers because we share a last name and some facial features. And we are trying to do our best to show, a way to connect from across the globe. I'm in Idaho. Dennis is in Korea, and we're
Yep.
trying to provide some guidance and advice and maybe some wisdom for just dealing with the stuff life throws at you sometimes. So,
And that's why we're here.
as we talked
Yes.
about, yeah,
Hmm.
as we talked about, we are talking about making choices today. And yeah, we made a decision to get back to what our original foundation was on this idea of this show and get away from these big, broad philosophical topics that you might hear other people talk about because we want it to be practical. We want wisdom that you can
Yeah,
actually.
it's all about what you could use. We want to be the best, but we can't be the abusers, the you just
Oh,
anyway.
you're too skinny for that. You're too.
You gotta. It was much better when I was more portly.
That's
Those
true.
days are
That's true.
done. Yeah. Well, hopefully they're
So,
done. I'm not trying to get any fatter.
you're not going to dress up as Santa Claus this year.
I, I was the only skinny Santa Claus at that school. Actually, it turns out Korean kids only know skinny Santa Claus, so it was no big deal.
Oh, okay. Like the
Yeah, they
old,
didn't think
I
anything
mean,
of it.
old style Saint Nick.
Old style Saint Nick, and they knew I was the real deal when I took my sunglasses off and they could see my eyes. Look into my
Because you
eyes,
have blue
children. I am
eyes.
Santa Claus. Hey,
All
that's
right.
that's to do it. That'll do it.
Okay. So, I think part of this topic came up because I have been not really presented. Well, something has come up that would be something I need to consider, something I need to think about as a potential life choice. There's it would mean if I took this opportunity, I'd have to obviously qualify and apply and everything else. But if I went that direction, it would mean a major life change, including
Mhm.
probably not being able to do this show at this time. So it would be drastic changes for me, for other people I know, for the people I'm working with and partnered with in my business, for my ability to write and do other things. So we thought, let's talk about making major choices.
And yeah, and I think, and it's funny because I recently came to you for another major choice that I had to make recently in my life, but and um and it was by talking it out, talking to you, and we kind of were able to, I was kind of able to hash out what my, what the right choice was. I mean, and
Hmm.
everything worked out. So hopefully we can do the same
Well,
thing
that's good.
here. Well, it all worked out in the end.
So, hey, let's talk about your process, or maybe different ideas you've used in the past and in the future, and where you kind of land now on uh, what constitutes good decision making, when it's, especially if it's two things that you really you kind of both want to do both. How do you make that tough choice?
So how do I make the tough choice? Well, I hate to. No, I don't hate to. I was going to say I'll take it back to the five Fs. I mean, our five Fs are our five Fs of or our five arenas, and the first one is faith. And the reason the first one is faith is because that's where I always want to start with a decision making process. You
Hmm.
know, we didn't do a Solomon Says section, but in Proverbs it says something like we can make plans, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And so when I think about that aspect, that's where I start. When I'm going, okay, um, how do I make a decision? The first place I start is right there on my knees in my bedroom, or somewhere like that.
Or
It
somewhere
could
like
be,
that.
well, Jesus says go off into your closet. I'm not always in my closet. A lot of times I do my praying outside. I go somewhere where I'm not around other people, and there's no children around, no screaming kids and stuff like that, and it's it's quite helpful for that. You know. So yeah, that's where I start. I ask
Okay, you
God
start
what's
there.
his plan, and then I get into the practical side. How's this decision going to affect my family? Um, and anybody who knows me would probably honestly say, "Oh yeah, Dennis, he doesn't always make the wisest decisions, or he kind of makes crazy decisions sometimes." And a lot of that comes from, for example, the decision to move to Korea. Um, a lot of people said, "It's kind of dumb. Why would you quit your really well-paying job and leave and go to Korea?" And to that, I say, God told me to. And the decisions that God often leads us down and that leads us to make are not always the most logical, rational decisions that everybody else would make. If that was the case, then he would have,
Mm.
sent an entire army to take over and save the world rather than just Jesus and 12 dudes that he picked up along the way. That's the way I
I
look at it.
think that this is not in my personal notes on decision making, but we got to bring this in, is that the times when God does clearly ask you to do something and it doesn't
Mhm.
seem rational or doesn't make, sometimes it does. Sometimes it's like, clearly God has prepared you for this. So of course you're
Mhm.
going to,
Mhm.
of course that's the door that's opened. Clear, sometimes it does. And other times he says, like to Abram, leave your father and your land and go, and I'll show you the place when you get there.
Yeah.
And it, like, this journey of faith and making that your primary, your first go to when you're making a decision, actually leads to more adventure in your life.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I love
And
that
that's something
story
I think
because
people, especially guys are like, faith is, going to church and
yeah.
being a Christian. And it's like, there's this idea of that's the feminine side. That's the dull, quiet, emotional, spiritual, internal thing. And really faith
Mhm.
is lived
Mhm.
out. in
Yeah.
following with boldness and courage. And that is a beautiful thing too.
Well, no, that's exactly right. Faith is lived out through boldness and courage. You mentioned that story of Abraham uh, listening to God and stepping out, and it's I love that story because that is the story that just kept coming to me over and over and over and over in the year probably in the 2 years leading up to the final kind of go ahead.
Hmm.
I felt God telling me, I'm going to show you where to go. And then suddenly I took a trip to I had to go to Korea for work. And as soon as I stepped off the plane, it was like boom. It was like, this is it. This is where I'm telling you to go. And I was like, Korea? What? Seriously? I mean, I love kimchi, but seriously?
We
um,
got a comment in here on this
oh hey. Oh
adventure
hey,
idea.
Dad. What's that?
Hey, Dad, how you been? Most
Yeah.
exciting adventure is walking in faith
That's a
ever.
fact. That's a fact. It is. It is the most exciting adventure ever because God will take you places you never knew you're going to go.
True.
Um, and what I loved about that story with Abraham, if you read a little bit before that, I don't know for sure, but when I read through it, if you are told to go somewhere by God and you don't do it, He'll find somebody else. I don't think Abraham was God's first choice. I think Abraham's dad was his first choice. And if you read it, what was his dad's name? I know his dad's brother's Laban. Uh, anyway, if you read the
That is
story,
eluding me right now.
they had already left their homeland and were headed in the direction of Canaan when they stopped. And then Abraham had to keep going. So I feel like when I've read the story multiple times, and every time I read the story, I get this. And I heard someone mention it a few months back that it was the same. Someone else had the same theory. Was you know maybe God chose the dad to go, and I can't remember his name. Forgive me for not being a Bible scholar, but and the dad just said, "Okay, I'm going to go," and then he kind of got comfortable. And he's like, "Yeah, maybe it's pretty nice right here. I don't need a promised land." And so Abraham had to go, and that's why we know who Abraham is and not Abraham's dad. There's the moral to the
And if you're
story.
not a Hebrew
Some guy
scholar,
in a
you forget.
some guy in a podcast is going to forget your name if you don't listen to God. There you go.
I yeah, I think there are some other stories that they have that feel at least.
Yeah.
That God intended for someone to do something, and when they didn't step forward in faith, he passed over them. And I mean, you look at Saul and David as kings.
Yeah, very good example. Yeah.
Saul was anointed as king,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the choice that God made. And because of his lack of faith and because of his disobedience, that anointing was passed on to someone who would actually follow God with his heart, even though he wasn't perfect.
Far from it. Far from it.
So,
Yeah.
okay, faith. That's a good one to start with. Where do you go from there?
Well, as I said, the next step is always family. Family is key to how is the decision going to affect my family? And that includes not just mom and dad and brother and sister. Once you're married, you include your wife and your kids and all that stuff. So
That's a good idea. Consult your wife if you're making a life-changing decision.
Never thought of that one. Consult your wife.
Yeah,
Good
don't
idea.
be like that. Don't be like Kevin Spacey in that American Dream movie where he just quits his job and starts working at McDonald's.
God, that was an old movie. How do you remember that?
I don't know. That one is stuck in my brain for some reason where it's just like, wow, I do not want to grow up and be that guy.
No, you definitely don't.
Right.
No, don't want to be that guy. That guy's a loser. And oh yeah, that was
He was also murdered by his neighbor. So
yeah. Oh geez, yeah. Isn't it funny how we find out who we got Bible comments over here from Dad. Who were
Yeah, yeah.
Abram's two brothers? Uh, one of them was Laban.
Mo and Curly.
Yeah, Curly. Yeah, there you go.
Laban was one of them. He's the one we hear about. We don't hear about the other one too much.
Right. Yeah, it's another one that didn't listen.
Is that
We know about
is that
Laban
correct?
because
Is
he
that?
was
And
trying to cheat.
I would need to double check on that. Because why? Because he tried to
He
cheat him.
was he tried to cheat Isaac. No, wait. Isaac, was it Isaac who tried to cheat or Jacob? I can't remember. It's all no, it wasn't. It was
No. Yeah, you're right. That would be the grandson. That was
yeah, it was the
Jacob
grandson.
went to
Yeah,
Laban, which would
mhm.
have actually been one of Abraham's nephews, I suppose,
Abraham's nephews or something.
or
Yeah,
something,
I don't know, or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
That's a pretty esoteric point there.
yeah, no kidding. So where was I?
Okay,
We're
you were
getting
at family.
sidetracked with the we were
I
talking
know.
about family. Yes. Okay. So yeah, you consult your wife, you talk to your wife. Now obviously there are times when you are meant to be the, thank you Dad, Nahor and Haran um were the two brothers of Abram, and Laban was uh Haran's
Laban would have
son.
been the next generation
Yeah.
somewhere.
All right. Anyway, now enough of that. Enough about Laban. He's not the family that we're talking about. We're talking about the family you're supposed to be talking to when you're making a decision. So after you've checked with God, obviously, if God tells you flat out, go do it, I think you should just go do it. But
We can talk more on that point. I mean, because obviously it's a question
yeah.
of how do you know you're hearing from God?
Well, yeah, I was about to get into
That's a
that. Yeah, I was about to
completely
say.
different question
Mhm.
there. I mean, we are not Abraham. We are not going to hear the clear and distinct voice that and experience the presence in some cases in the same way that it seems he did. Now,
Maybe.
there's not a clear definition. There's not a clear description of it was an audible voice that Abraham heard.
The voice was
So
audible.
there are times when it's
Um,
clear that an audible voice is heard in scripture from God, Jesus's baptism, for instance. But in other cases, we're not really entirely clear how some of these people who speak for God hear his voice. So, you got to be careful
okay.
because
Well,
there's other
yeah.
voices out there, including your own.
Oh, agreed. There are at least there are other voices, and when God brings you into a relationship with somebody, you should, especially your wife, definitely you wanna consult with her, because the reason why you're together is, you know, as the Bible says. I mean, Adam and Eve were what was it? What's the
One
Bible
flesh.
call Eve is the help meet? Yeah,
The
one
helpmate,
flesh.
yes.
She's meant to be, yeah, the help meet. I don't know exactly what that means in the translation, but God has a wonderful sense of humor. Thanks, Dad. He tends to give you the half of your answer and the other half to your wife. And that's the point I was getting to. Thank you. We should just bring Dad on the show one of these days. Just Adam, invite him to the studio.
We will.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to listen to God and then consult with your wife, because he may and probably has given her the other half of the answer. So
Or perhaps just I mean, sometimes it's just a different perspective. It's missing those things that you didn't see
seeing those
that
things you missed.
that help you. Yeah, seeing those things you didn't see and helping you to see.
Mhm.
Oh well, maybe there's a piece of that you're missing, or a perspective on it that you're missing, because we can.
Mhm.
You look at any type of research, and two people can look at the same data and come up with a completely different conclusion. And
Fact.
I think that same thing can happen as we're
Fact.
seeking God.
No, it's
Same thing
funny
can
because
happen.
yeah, I mean, I point that out when I read articles with my students all the time. It's like, well, the research that they're talking about in this study points to one thing, but other research points to another thing, or they could be looking at the same data and leaving out two things. You know, um,
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get into
In
that.
reference to making decisions, though, you
Mhm.
know, yes, God may direct you in a certain direction, but your wife is the one who says, "Oh, there's a big, obstacle there that you're not aware of,"
Mhm. Mhm.
and that may
Yeah.
be the other half, or it may just be something else.
Or maybe it's just be you need to be aware of it so that you don't fall on your face while you're trying to move in that direction.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
like,
Um
hey, you're not very organized. Maybe you shouldn't be an accountant.
or maybe you should learn how. There are ways to learn these tricks. Maybe we'll make a video about how to learn how to improve yourself about getting organized. I got to get organized before I can do that though.
I I wonder where we're going to learn when we will both learn that from.
Hmm. I don't know. Could it? Never mind. I was gonna. Could it be? No. Maybe. Anyway, that's a 1990s reference. Remember that one? Could it be?
Uh, yeah, I know,
Uh,
I know.
yeah.
That's come
That's
up
yeah.
recently too. So
Huh? What?
that
What's come up
that
recently?
reference came up recently about some other
The
stuff. So
church lady from
yeah, yeah.
Saturday Night Saturday SNL. Yes. I heard. Speaking of SNL, I heard that they're not doing so well in the ratings.
I I
Get
don't
woke,
I
good
don't
woke
know.
much?
I don't know.
Well, no, I
Um
just heard. I just heard. You know,
okay.
I read the
So
news
you
all the
got
time, every
you
day.
got faith, you got family. So
Mhm.
any other wisdom you want to
Uh,
drop before I give my take?
well, rolling on with the Fs. I mean, faith, family, fitness. Okay, how does that affect your fitness? Like you said, the new decision. I mean, you got to think about it. You've got to think about it. How is it going to affect you? Do you have a workout plan? Do you have a fitness plan? Do you have a thing that you do regularly? And how much is that going to change? I mean, I think it's that important in the great grand scheme of things. Maybe so. But I mean, if you have a regular routine that is keeping you going at the certain rate that you're going at, perhaps it might be something to consider. Um,
Yeah.
when I made the decision to start teaching online, um, I hadn't. I wasn't aware of how it was going to affect my workout routine. It affected it a lot. And so I've had to totally, I mean, everything's been kind of flipped on its head, and my sleep cycle's been flipped on its head. And so you have to take that into account. And you're like, oh well, oh, decision but think about how it will affect your fitness, not
I
just
think
workout routine, but
when it
sleep
comes
cycles
into
and
yeah.
food and eating and diet and
Okay.
all those things. You know,
Well, and you you personally have made a lot of those types of decisions about career and job that sometimes end up with you on the night shift, including this current
oh,
one.
dude,
And that
it's like I'm called to be on the night shift. It's so weird.
you're a night watchman, just accept it.
I'm a night watchman. I'm standing on the tower watching. I'm watching.
Some of us are not. Some of us
Mhm.
are definitely not. I think with regard to the fitness aspect, you could also bring in the idea of, are you fit enough for this thing that you may be looking at and considering?
Yeah, yeah.
That, are there things you need to do to get ready?
Hmm.
That's a big question.
Oh, that's huge.
Go with
That's a
you
really good point. I
take that
mean,
direction.
yeah, because fitness is not just physical. It's also about your preparedness and being ready. So I
Yeah,
mean,
the
yeah, there's the
mental,
physical. I
emotional.
want to go be a Navy SEAL. Well, if you're fat and out of shape, might not be something that you're gonna do. But
Right.
but is there something you can do to prepare for that? Sure, there is.
Well, in some ways,
Put down
I
the
think
twin.
Abraham is a good example again, because we look at, like, he had this calling, but it was a very long time before many of those promises were fulfilled. You
Hmm.
look at Moses the same way. You look at the Israelites in general; like, they had this promise of a Messiah forever before it actually came to fulfillment
Yeah,
in
and then they
Jesus. And
totally
it's like everything in God's timing is very different than our expectations of what that should be or what we want. And
exactly,
if
and
you
that goes
try
back
and
to the scripture I shared earlier. So.
yeah, if you try and force it, many times you're
Mhm.
stepping outside of God's will.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Very good point. So, all right. So that was faith, family, fitness. Now, finances, obviously, that goes in this case, it kind of goes along with finances. Is the decision going to affect? Is it going to cost you money? Is it going to earn you money? Things you got to consider. And of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
finally, is it going to be fun? That's one of my biggest considerations. Are you going to have fun doing it? No,
I thought you were the
I'm kidding.
freedom guy.
Yeah, I am the freedom guy, but I'm also the fun guy because freedom is fun.
Yeah.
The mental.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
Wait,
I
Ed's
think
saying
I'm the
something
fun.
else here. Funny you
Uh,
bring up routines. In the future, let's talk about success routines and failure routines. Okay,
oh,
fair
yeah.
enough.
Okay. Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Uh, okay. I think
We haven't talked about
we've covered
routines
the
recently.
5 arenas, which is cool. I
Well,
don't
I covered them
know
from my
where the
aspect. I
routine
mean, did
thing
you
is.
have anything to add on that?
I actually consider like, okay, let's look at somebody who doesn't necessarily have a Christian faith for sure.
Hmm.
Or maybe they're new in the faith and they're not sure. They're still seeking out God or trying to find out what it's like to experience his voice and his leading.
Hmm.
And there's some simple ways to consider that. There's the pros and cons list, which is an old classic, right?
That's an old classic.
It's
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it's pretty straightforward. What are the pros of doing this? What are the cons of doing this? And which is kind of
Hmm.
what we've been talking about to a degree.
Yeah.
But when you get them on paper, you start to see, okay, what's realistic here? And you start to see what's this actually going to require of me. And that can be a good thing,
Hmm.
because it helps you to quantify things rather than just staying within your head and maybe scaring yourself out of a good decision
That's a good
because of
point.
what is possibly there. There is it Ford, Henry Ford, who said, I've been afraid of a lot of things in my life, and some of them really happened, or something. There's something like that.
I like that. I don't know.
I've worried.
I don't
I've
know.
worried
Was that
about a
Henry
lot of
Ford
things
who
in
said
my
that?
life, and some of them
Worried
really
about.
happened. I think it was Henry
Let's see.
Ford, but I'm paraphrasing.
I'm gonna look it up. I've worried. I'm gonna mute my mic here because I don't want to.
Okay, yeah. There's a motivational business guy named Tim Ferriss who's written some books that are very popular. He's got a couple of videos online that you can find about fear setting instead of goal setting. And that's an interesting concept where he looks at what am I afraid of about this choice and kind of setting out, what's the worst that could happen if I do it? What's the worst that could happen if I don't do it? And
Hmm.
letting that help guide your decision as well.
Fear setting versus goal setting. That's an interesting
Yeah.
concept. I'd never
It
thought of that.
it's a fascinating concept, especially if it is something that you really deeply desire,
Hmm.
but you're still afraid.
Hmm.
Is seeing, oh, here's what my fear really is if I do it, and here's what I fear would happen if I don't do it. And sometimes that can dramatically change your motivation for doing the thing that you want to that you dream of. So those are the I would call the practical things you would do if you were not a believer. Um, because unfortunately, if you're not a believer, you don't have that whole idea. And I brought it up earlier. Proverbs 16:9.
I brought it up earlier.
Well, you brought it up earlier, but I actually looked it up earlier to make sure we had the right
I
verse
actually looked it up
address.
earlier. Okay. All right. Well, okay. I looked it up
So
earlier too.
Proverbs sixteen
And
nine. A man's heart plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. There's a couple of different ways to do it. Like there's other passages that talk about the Lord determines the steps of the righteous instead of just everyone. But in this case, we can clearly say that. It, oh, well, there you go. Yeah,
hey,
establishes their steps is another way to put it. But
that's another way to
the
put it.
idea
Yes.
being, um, we're going to make our plans. Because even
Hmm.
if we feel and understand that, okay, God has called me to something, um, we're going to make mistakes. We can't perfectly fulfill his plan. We are gonna fear and lack courage and make mistakes and actually sin and actually mess stuff up. And and maybe have some unintended consequences that we didn't see in the beginning,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're human and we're limited. But
Hmm.
we have this idea, and especially in the other verses about um, the Lord guiding the steps of the righteous, that
Yeah.
brings some significant peace and confidence,
Hmm.
because now you have it's a promise, but it's more just kind of, it's not treated as a promise, but almost like just this is the reality of the situation, in that you have somebody kind of watching you and directing you in ways you don't even understand, to take you places that you didn't think you would be going. And we get back to
Yeah.
that adventure aspect.
It's all about the adventure.
That's,
I mean, it really
it's
is.
very
It
cool.
really is. It's not all about the adventure, but you know, God is so good to give us the chance to have those adventures with Him. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
coolest things about being a Christian is not that it's it's not about um being going to church all the time, although that is important and the fellowship is really important, but really trying to be a a what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to to walk with Him. It means that you're going to be having adventures all the time. I mean, God will take you through adventures, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really the fun part. Um, and watching my wife, who was not a Christian when we met, experience her own little walk and learn, because I didn't evangelize her. I didn't like, hey, you got to go to church with me. I never forced her on that. I got on my knees and I prayed for her every single day, and I tried to, and I was never afraid to mention God. I was never afraid to talk about God, and my experiences with Him. But when she came to me one day, shortly before we got married, and said, um, God spoke with me, and it was like a choir was singing, and I was like, haha, you got it. And so watching her go through that, watching her experience that, um uh eh, through the years. I mean, since we've been married, what, over 5 years now. So it's been really nice. It still is nice, and watching her,
Mm.
kind of her rough edges get smoothed down by the Holy Spirit and by God's love. It's really just awesome to me. Yeah.
That's an ongoing
It's
process.
awesome,
I'm
man.
gonna push back on that, going to church thing, because man, I've been doing a lot of study lately on the church and what it is intended to be. And it's, I mean, if you think of the church as the body of Christ, there is no way we can do this on our own.
Well, I totally
Like
agree.
it
I
is,
totally agree.
so I mean, like, while you can survive a little bit outside for a while, it's kind of like, it's kind of like in the horror movies when somebody loses an arm, but it's still sitting there twitching a little bit. It's like, oh, there's still some synapses firing, but eventually that thing's gonna just rot. And that is what your spirituality does when you have cut yourself off from the body.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good
So
point. That's a
don't
good
take
point.
off that decision plate from you. So
Well, no, and that's not where I
actually,
was trying to go. I don't want to say I was
no,
I
I
was
know you
trying
weren't.
to
I know
point I
you
was
weren't.
trying to say that, yeah,
I'm
you
just
definitely
pushing
want to
back
go spend it.
to be
Yeah, so I would
stronger.
never say don't go to church, because that's not what I was trying to say. I was trying to say that, um experiencing that it's not all about church, going into,
You
sitting in
mean
the
the
pews. I'm talking about the actual, like, the
I
sitting in the
understand that.
pews and
I understand that.
stand up, sit down, sat up, sit down, pray, that, sing the songs, and that's not what it's
The
all about.
the corporate aspect of worship and ordinances and hearing the word together and all those things are uh some of the core aspects of church, but it goes much beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh
the
yeah,
church
without a
as
doubt.
itself, if the church really is being the body, it is about, like, that is that's like the hub that everything else is built around, and the rest of it is, just all of life, which should be
Yeah.
reflective of your faith in your life. So actually, it's interesting because I taught on this idea of decision making for a bunch of teenagers last year,
Cool.
and what you hit on was largely what I told them. Was if you're going to make decisions, especially large life altering decisions like where to go to college, what career to pursue, uh, whether you should marry someone,
That's a
whether
good
you're
one.
ready for children, then
Hmm.
you gotta be seeking God for that, what his will is in that case, because there are some people who are called to uh, stay single for his purposes. And that's clear in Paul's letters. There are more people who are called to get married and fulfill presenting the gospel to the world in marriage and child
I
rearing.
think that I think yeah, but I think that's one of those situations where yeah, um, that I think that Paul's case was more of the exception because I mean it's a commandment in the very beginning, be fruitful and multiply. Okay, that's like is kind of there.
Right.
Why would you go? Why change that? Be
Oh,
fruitful
well,
and
and his
multiply. God said it
there are some
before
folks who
Elon
do
Musk did.
think that Paul may have been previously married and was a widower potentially.
I
Potentially.
would buy that. I would buy that
Considering the
absolutely.
culture and considering some other ideas. But like Peter was married, and still did significant ministry. He was a leader of the church in Jerusalem. But the yeah, Paul was trying to partially at least prevent people from looking down on those who were single, because
Yeah,
that's not something we're supposed to do either, right?
yeah,
But anyway, the first was to seek God. Um, and there's prayer is one way to do that. I think prayer with fasting is a great way to do that.
excellent way to do it.
Prayer and fasting and scripture reading is another way to do that. So you have what God's already said,
Hmm.
and if you're hearing something that conflicts with scripture, it's probably
Then
not
it's not
God
God.
speaking. Actually,
Hmm.
no, it's not God speaking.
It's definitely not God. It's
if
definitely
you're
not. Yeah,
hearing
God
something
doesn't
if
contradict
you're
himself.
hearing something that it seems to kind of fit within scripture, but I'm not really sure, uh, you know, then that's where you get counsel,
Right, and that
and
comes into that
and
family and friends thing. I forgot to mention. I mean, that
yeah, the
comes into
family and
that
friends
body
thing.
of body. I mean, talk to some friends from church, especially
Yeah.
fellow believers, because fellow starts with F. Um,
Fellow
uh,
fellowship.
fellows. Oh my gosh.
So many
We
F
just
words in this show.
Yeah, I know, man. We're just dropping F bombs left and right.
Oh. So yeah, the counsel part, and I mean, I think Scripture encourages that, right? But seeking the right kind of counsel, and I think one of the
Yeah.
things our current culture struggles with is going to social media for counsel. And guess what?
Oh.
The people on social media who you're going to say, I'm going to start this new job, 99% of them are going to say, woohoo, you, woohoo, yay, good for you, congratulations, blah, 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 blah. And it's all going to be this chorus of cheers because it's all about the positivity.
Hmm.
Whereas
Hmm.
most of these people
Yeah.
don't actually have any wisdom to offer. They don't know the situation. They don't know what the drawbacks might be and the dangers might be. And
No,
so
that's
that is not where
absolutely
I would
right.
go for
Yeah.
counsel.
And yeah, let's not forget. I mean, it's so funny because you say if you mention to people on these social media platforms, hey, I'm going to start this job. Now try mentioning that you're going to start a business. Oh yeah, you're not going to hear quite as many hoo-hoos and ha-ha. You might hear a lot of
Well,
congratulations. You might hear a lot of
the,
yeah, good job. But when it comes to actually doing and helping you and supporting you,
even
crickets.
more than the job,
No, I'm kidding.
if you
I'm
put out
joking.
there, hey, I met somebody or I've got a new relationship, all you're
Yeah.
going to get is the rah rah crowd, and
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
again, man. Or hey, I'm getting married, and like you're just like people are just going to throw the congratulations around, whether that's a good call for you or not. And so,
Oh
be very
well,
cautious about that.
yeah, and I speak from personal experience when it comes to seeking advice about who to marry. Make sure you ask the right people
Hmm.
because if you don't, you might end up doing what I did and marrying the wrong people more than once.
At least not all at once.
Well, yeah, don't do it all at once, especially, but because then you'd be like two or three times as much trouble. But still, no, thank God, he looked out for me, and saved me for the right one.
Yeah. Again, you can change your choice, and you
Bullet
can
dodged. Three
You can
times.
you can come to repentance if you've made a bad choice and all that and
Absolutely.
everything.
Yeah.
Those are always options. But making unwise choices always is going to come with consequences that cause pain, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
if we
Yep.
think about it beforehand, that can help us.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, along with all of that, I would say, anything that's immoral, illegal, or unethical, you can probably rule out as God's will for you. That's easy.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting take. Um, what about immoral laws or unethical laws?
There are times when laws are unethical or immoral. And so
Mm.
that's why I say immoral, illegal, or unethical, not and.
Okay. Okay.
Because you have
So
to consider that there are immoral laws. There are things that are
absolutely.
permissible under the law
Uh-huh.
that are immoral. We shouldn't
Hmm.
do them. There are things that are
Right.
permissible under the law that are unethical and maybe are, the things that a shyster would do. You shouldn't
Hmm.
do them.
Right.
Everybody gets that. It's just
Well,
when it comes to
yeah. Okay.
personal
Well, what happens
application, we
when there's
sometimes like to
what
fudge the
happens when
numbers.
they're yeah, exactly, exactly. So I mean, as long as the law isn't mandating that you do something that's ethical or immoral,
Yeah.
then we got some issues. We can maybe we can do another show about that another time. As long as they're not mandating that you do something that is unethical or immoral, like the medical stuff or things like that.
There's lots of potential options there. Um, there's a quote that is
Oh, speaking of
usually
quotes,
attributed.
before you
Mm,
jump into that,
mm.
the quote that you gave, let me pull
Which
up
one?
the other window here.
Oh, for the
The
Henry
quote
Ford
that
quote.
you just gave, it was not Henry Ford. Believe it or not, it was not Henry Ford. No, I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened.
Hmm.
Mark Twain. Mark
Mark
Twain.
Twain. Mark
Yeah, good
Twain.
old Mark Twain. He's so good about stuff like that.
I
And
know.
I would
I
love
know.
to have shared it.
Even better than Henry Ford.
Even better. I mean, God, I don't know though. I mean, half the quotes on the internet are attributed to Mark Twain. Who else? The other half are attributed to Abraham Lincoln,
Ralph
and I
Waldo
forget who
Emerson.
the other. Oh, that's the other half. Yeah. So half.
That's the other
So, me do math good. Yeah.
half. Uh,
That's that new age math.
so
So
there
yeah.
is one. There is one that has been attributed to multiple people from history. I think because several people said it in similar ways, or they were kind of half quoting each other and adding on a bit.
Mhm.
You probably will see it from Augustine, and it is love God and do as you will, or love God and do what you want, even.
Wait a minute. So I'm love God and do what you want. I'm gonna have to call this a fool's errand. Just call me
Okay.
crazy. That's
Okay.
what I'm gonna have to
Explain.
call that.
Explain yourself.
Okay, love God and do what you want. No, I number one, I agree. Love God, love God, love God, love God, love God. Um, but don't do what you will. Do what He wills. Now, granted, if you are loving God and you are walking in connection with Him and in spiritual connection with Him, and um, it's very likely that your will and His will be aligned. But I still would say that it's His will, not your will.
Okay. So the
That's
full
my
quote,
take. That's my take.
the
Okay,
full
go ahead.
quote goes something like this: Love God and do as you will, for the heart tuned to love God will do nothing to offend the object of its affection.
That's exactly what I said, except nicer.
So the main idea would be love God and do what you will, because if you have trained your heart to love God, you
Mhm.
won't do the things that offend him.
Exactly what I said, because you're
I do
walking in
think
connection.
I do think it's a case of prescriptive rather than descriptive, because we are incapable of perfectly doing his will and perfectly doing things that don't offend. Like we can't be perfect in that. We are going to do things that offend him, even unintentionally, even as we're trying to do good. We can't help it. We will make mistakes. We are human, right? Um,
Well, thank God for the
and
blood
I
of
think there
Christ,
is,
because
and I
that's what
think
He
there
sees.
is. What's that?
I said, well, thank God for the blood of Christ, because once you're washed with the blood of Christ,
Right.
that's what he sees.
Right.
So
And but I think even in that, as we try to carry out his will, um doing those things because we love God, because we have come to um faith, and we are his, and we're carrying them out, like, because that's what he would do.
mhm.
Like, even the imperfect is going to be better than trying to do those same things without him. So
I,
it's not going to
yeah,
be perfect, but again, you also look at what does love God mean? Well, you have to look at what he says it means, not what you think it means.
no,
And if
yeah,
you've
that was,
done,
yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
doing your best to do it the way he says loving him is, then you're going to be a lot better off than you would be.
Yeah. Well, and as a dad, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you can relate as well. And this is one of the things that I absolutely love about being a dad is I get obviously there's no perfect father, but I get to understand a little bit more of his heart because
Mm-hmm.
my kids, your kids, you see them struggling, you see them trying to do good. I mean, if you're raising them up right, they're trying to do good. Yeah, they get a little
Yeah.
mischief sometimes, but they're trying to do good. And you want to encourage and root them on, cheer for them and
Mm-hmm.
root that on as they're trying to do good, because I mean, I absolutely love it when my kids do stuff like that. And I love it when, like my son, he's so loving towards his little baby sister. And he just, I've never seen a kid who just so loving. He's like, wants to hold her and hug her and touch her, but he gets a little rough sometimes. And it's like, she's a baby, back up. So it's like, you're right. He's trying to walk in love. He's trying to do his will, which is same as my will. It's the loving will. So what you said is correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfect though. So yeah, I
Yeah.
totally, I totally understand. It's like, okay, I appreciate what you're doing and I love it, but pull it back a little bit.
The other part of that is I can't remember specifically the scripture, but there's one about um let me get away from that. There is a concept biblically, and I can't remember the specific scripture, of the transformation that God creates in you. When he creates you as a new creation,
Mhm.
you can, through obedience and through just living out the life of faith and walking with the Spirit, learn God's will. And part of the Spirit working in you is to make you desire to do his will. And that is a factor that also comes into play. You're more likely
Yeah.
to desire to do the right thing the longer that you have been walking with him and the deeper that you walk with him. And so that comes into
Yeah.
play too. So it's not
Oh
it's
yeah,
not
absolutely.
entirely a fool's errand.
No,
I
no,
think
no.
it's very I think it is
But if
very
you leave out
optimistic
the
and
end,
hopeful.
if you leave out the
Yes.
end, it's a fool's errand. So you got to say the
If
whole
you only
quote.
take on the first portion. So,
Yeah. Hmm. So I
okay.
mean that's don't be like the media. You got to share the whole quote. I'm sorry, I
Well, I
can't help
mean,
myself sometimes.
if you really want to take Jesus out of context, he encouraged cannibalism.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Eat my flesh. Excuse me. Drink my blood
I've
and eat
thought
my flesh.
before,
Blah.
you could just have a shirt that says "Eat me," and then attribute it to Jesus with a John, uh, with
Coming
the right
soon to
right.
the Dad saved the internet.
Yeah, I knew.
Web. That we'll be selling shirts. Eat me
I think
by Jesus.
I think we'll probably more likely get these so many F-bombs on this show.
Yeah, oh, you know what? Bingo. That's it. So many f bombs on this show.
all the we'll get all the people who are like, "There's no F. What are they talking about?" Huh?
That's so effed up, man. It's so effed up. This
Um,
show is effed up. How about that? Oh my goodness.
father, fathered up with
Honored up.
with 5
Lots of
arenas that are all
F's.
Fs.
We got
Yeah,
a lot of F's.
Dad used to have that shirt, but I don't know what that shirt is.
Which one was it? The "Eat
Yeah,
Me"
he'll have to
shirt,
come back and
or was it the
probably
"That's
not.
effed up" shirt? I mean, you used to have a shirt that said "uh," and then you made it say
I did,
"duh."
and then I made it say "duh." That
Hmm.
was
Yes, I feel
courtesy
bad
of
for
the
everybody who
University
went
of
to University of
Hawaii and
Hawaii.
Sharpie.
Yeah. Where'd you go to school? Uh.
Uh, so
Anyway,
I want to say one thing about
yeah. Before we go,
making
we got to wrap up pretty soon.
decisions.
Mhm.
Apparently, Dad had a shirt that said "Eat me."
Eat me.
One
Well,
thing about making decisions,
never saw
especially
that one.
really big decisions, we know when decisions are going to be big enough that they're going to drastically change our life.
Mhm.
Some of them, in fact, probably most of the ones that are that big, are so big that you really can't prepare for what it looks like on the other side. You don't, you can't imagine it. And parenthood, I think, is a really good example
Oh yeah.
because we've
Oh
all
yeah.
interacted with children and we start
Mhm.
to imagine, oh, if I was a dad, this is what I think it might be like.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you're just not prepared for that.
You're wrong.
Like
Whatever you're thinking right now, if you're not a dad, you're wrong.
you can learn a lot of the things that are parts of it,
Mhm.
but man, it is impossible to really feel like, yep, I was ready.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But,
And I
that's the adventure
marriage
of
can
it.
be
That's the
the same
whole
way.
point.
Exactly.
That's the whole point.
Exactly.
It's the adventure that God is leading you on, and and, you know, it's like surfing or snowboarding or skiing, you just have to let go and ride it. You can't control it. You just gotta go with the
Yeah.
ride. So,
And I think that's where I was going to go, not necessarily to the
mhm.
physicality of surfing or something like that, but just that
It's a
idea
metaphor,
of,
dude. It's a metaphor.
oh, I know. I know. I get it. Sometimes you're not going to know, and the best you can do is like it gives us a way to take a breath
Mhm.
when we're
Yeah.
trying to make a decision, to be like, I'm going to go as far as I can, and then I just got to make the leap. And so, regardless of whether you're a believer or not, faith comes into this.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah.
So you might as
Might
well
as well
walk
have
with
faith in
God,
God. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
who who has
I'd rather
promised
have that.
to guide you,
Mhm.
rather than just do it on your own and be like,
Yeah.
well, I guess it's going to
Mhm.
work or it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not the kind of faith I want. Hey, I have a thought, and
Mhm.
tell me what you think. Fool's errand. I didn't plan this, but it
Oh,
just kind
okay.
of popped on my head. One of the things I absolutely hate is an expression that I hear all the time, and it's YOLO. YOLO. You only live once. And while it
That
is a
is
true
not where I
statement,
thought you were going to go.
where'd you think I was going to go?
You follow your heart.
Oh no. Oh no, that's yeah, you know what? That's
Both of them.
but they do kind of go hand in hand. YOLO and follow your heart. They're both pieces of
Yeah.
very bad advice. You only live
Yeah.
once. It is a true statement, yes. But using it as an excuse or as a reason to make foolish decisions is a fool's errand. It's just not a good idea. I mean, what do you think? I mean, but
Well,
the
YOLO is
same thing could be
powered
said
by
for
FOMO, which is fear of missing out.
YOLO,
Like
FOMO.
that
Yeah,
is
that's true. Hmm.
that is the emotional power behind YOLO is, oh,
Hmm.
I'm going to miss something that might be really cool. Well,
Yeah,
guess what? It might also blow your head up.
yeah. Or it
You
might
don't
actually
know.
be lame. It might be
Or it
lame,
might, oh, yeah, or it might just be like, well,
and
okay.
it's highly
I,
likely it was probably lame.
man, I wish maybe I can find it here real quick. Keep talking.
Okay, well, anyway, I would put YOLO and follow your heart on the same level of bad advice. Fool's errand. Follow your heart is is number one. The Bible says that your heart is deceitful. Okay. Now, if you've made things right with God and you are walking with Him, and He has given you a new heart, because the Bible also says that He's giving you a new heart. So Listen to your new heart, absolutely, but don't follow it. Follow God. Follow God,
Mm.
because God's going to take your heart where it needs to go. Okay. Um, yeah, follow your heart, because trust me, I've been there. I'm
Mm.
40, what? I'm going to be 46 next month. Gee, when it Chris, my gosh. And I've followed my heart before. Let me tell you what. The follow your heart takes you into some dark alleys, and you're about to get yourself beat up and have everything taken from you. Okay, that's what's going to happen when you walk
Hey,
into
hey, hey!
when you follow your heart.
Don't victim blame your own heart,
Dad says,
man.
Dad says, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to
Oh,
be happy.
oh,
I just
that's
want you to
another
be
one.
happy. And it's true. It's true. That was another one. Thanks, Dad. That was a good one. I just want you to be happy. That's a lie. It's a lie, because
So
so oftentimes people say that to say, I just I don't want you. I don't want to take responsibility for telling you something that would hurt your feelings. That's
mm,
what that statement says.
ooh.
Anyway. Anyway, that's all I got to
So
say about that, bruh.
in different contexts.
Well, I do want you to be happy. It's
Well,
true.
no, I mean in
But
different
by saying everything,
the other common context you would hear. I just want you to be happy. Is in a position of this person doesn't want to be with you anymore, and you're willing to say, I really want to be with you, but if you think that happiness is with someone else, then that's your call. So it's a relinquishment. I mean, it's different, but it's still. Uh, I want you to be happy is not the highest form of love for another person.
no, that's true. It's not. It's not. As long as you're happy, or I just want you to be happy. Because happiness is a fleeting thing. You should be
Yeah,
seeking joy, seeking actual love, and seeking the best
yeah.
for each other, for your family, for your friends, and everybody else. What are
I
I'll let you go search for something. Tell me what you got.
I have two. One of them is actually, as I was looking for this, I was looking for a C.S. Lewis quote that wasn't a C.S. Lewis quote,
You're
and I
just
found
batting
a
1,000 on
better
the quotes tonight.
actual C.S. Lewis quote. So the one you've okay, getting towards your concept of missing out and what we were talking about earlier of sometimes the thing might actually be harmful, and the very first time you do it you end up crushed or severely damaged. In other
Mhm.
cases it's like, well, that was supposed to be super exciting, and wow, that was a letdown. um which, a lot of romantic encounters can be that way outside of marriage.
Huh,
But here it
a
is.
lot.
uh, Once a dream has become a fact, I suppose it loses something. This isn't affection or affectation. We long and long for a thing, and when it comes, it turns out to be just a pleasant incident, much like others. Like, sometimes our hopes are so high for that thing, like the most awesome movie we're expecting to come out, and then when it finally comes out, and we're like, ah, that was a letdown. The book was better.
The book's always
Speaking
better.
of books
The
being
book is
better,
always better. Yeah. Speaking of books being better, tell us about it, brah.
no, we'll forego the sponsorships today on from our own selves.
Sponsored by ourselves. Hey, hey, you can't go wrong with that. Hey, speaking of sponsored by myself, um,
You're gonna do it anyway.
I'm gonna do it anyway. No,
How
actually,
dare you
I'm.
schlock
How
your
dare
services
you? How
on this
dare you?
podcast that's all about meeting together to encourage each other in our services? I
My
can't believe
services are
that
on
you're
hold
trying
right
to
now.
tell people that they should go to this particular website
Yeah, go check. Yeah,
so
I'm
that
not
they
going to
can
tell people to go
stand
check
with
out all
you.
about English learning at
Would you just
Instagram.com,
stop?
because
Stop telling
that would
people
be
that, Mr. Dennis,
inappropriate.
brother,
Yes, Brandon.
I'm
Yes,
trying to
Brandon.
save you from humiliating yourself by telling people to go to Instagram and look for allaboutenglish.com so that they can find out the best way to learn English.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wasn't going to
Would you
talk
just
about that.
stop telling people that if
I
they
wasn't going
study
to
with
talk about
you,
that at all.
they will
No.
learn English faster and
Mhm,
easier, be
mhm.
more eloquent, more
Never going to tell them
polished,
that.
and more ready for a
Than
career
me.
change? Would you
Yes.
please stop, Dennis Wilborn?
Hmm. I promise I'll stop. Next time,
Awesome.
I'm going to talk about how people who want to teach can join the platform, and I can teach them how to do that. Whoa!
Would
Not
you
just teaching
please?
English.
Yes.
No, I'm not going to do it
Whatever
this
you
time.
do,
I'm going
folks,
to do it next time. Next
whatever
time.
you do, whatever you do, just ignore the link at the bottom of the page that
Yeah.
says
Don't go there.
Instagram.com/all about English with hyphens in between the word or underscores in
Yeah.
between the words. Forget,
Mm-hmm.
just
Don't do it.
forget you
Don't.
saw that because it's about to disappear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is. It is. One of these days. Oh, okay. Anyway. Can't get good help these days, huh? Speaking of reading books.
All right.
Speaking of reading books, I mean, so yeah, I mean, what
So
were
I've
we
been
were
I've
talking
been
about?
listening. I've been listening to a book that is very much about it's about faith in general. But
Mm,
there was an excellent thing in talking about this process of struggling towards joy more than happiness, and the idea of you only live once. It described faith as being like you're on one side of the river, and joy is on the other side of the river. But the only way to get there is to go through.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you try to go around the river, you're just going to walk parallel to joy forever. You're never going to reach
Mm,
it. If you're walking,
yeah.
if you try and build a bridge out of your own efforts and self-construction and positivity and all this stuff, it's gonna disintegrate and fall into the river.
Yeah.
And the only way to get through is through the discomfort of walking into that stream and resisting and facing it, and then as you go, the knowledge that you're getting closer to the thing you desire is the joy that you experience along the way. And it's not complete until you get there, which is when you actually get to see face to face. But that's what
You
we
know,
get on
that's
this time.
that's a heck of a way to put that. I like that. I've heard a similar metaphor with fire, but I think water
Yeah.
is much better.
Yeah.
You know,
That
because
was
I'm a
from
water guy.
Matt Walsh's Church of Cowards.
Matt Walsh is a very interesting character.
He's an
I like
interesting
his
character. His
very
his
often,
his
but
writing, I think comes across as more
I
thoughtful
like
than his other stuff.
really because I mean he comes across as pretty thoughtful anyway. But
Well, I mean he
yeah,
does, it's
his
even
dry
more
sense of
so.
humor
Like
is hilarious. So
yeah, you don't get the humor quite as much, but you do get some very very thoughtful stuff from a guy who has spent some time thinking instead of
amen
just
to that.
going and getting
Yeah.
downloaded from.
I don't know how he has all that time to think with all them children, but I'm learning. I'm learning. Anyway,
So okay, two aspects I wanted to talk about.
Papa says, great show. Love you guys. Aloha. Aloha, Papa.
Aloha,
And
Baba. Love
have a
you.
great one. If you gotta go, you gotta go. All right. Especially
Well,
when you're your age.
and sometimes you got to go right now.
Uh-huh. All right, we gotta
All
wrap it
right.
up, bro.
Two other things I wanted to chat about real quick.
All right.
One is this concept of if God is planning our steps, then of regardless of the decisions we're making, if we are
Mm,
trying to live in the Spirit and trying to walk with Him, we make our decisions and then we rest in Him,
hmm
and we have the confidence that He is working for our good, whatever that looks like. And success and failure become less important because we're not doing it for the same human reasons that we would normally do these things.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
those decisions become things that we do in order to help glorify Him, in order to help prepare us for. We only get one life, that's true, but guess what? It goes on forever.
Yeah.
And this is the
And that,
preparation, the
yeah.
training
hmm
stage for the next
You know,
stage.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's a much better, more eloquent way to put it than me. I guess everybody should go to you to learn English. But no, you're right. You're right that yeah yeah actually maybe we should do we could do a class and we'll teach writing because you're a good writer and very eloquent, and that would be a good idea. It's you're a writer to be kind of cool. And Dad says
Oh,
to post the link for the book, for the Matt Walsh book, in the descriptions. That's a good idea. We'll have to put that in after
maybe I
we get
will.
everything posted. Well,
Yeah.
maybe you will, maybe you won't. I know you got kids
Yeah.
at home today, so
I oftentimes
um
I oftentimes don't go back to these things until much later because busy and stuff, and it's hunting season.
I know. I hope you have a better luck next time, bruh. I really do. Because,
So there
yeah,
is one other thing I wanted to talk about, and this
mhm.
is consider this the bonus section because we're not
Bonus.
this is not part of our primary thing. But in the thumbnail, I
Oh, I
put
really love that. I
red
love that. I love
pill,
that you
blue
made me the
pill.
red pill. Thank you very much. I was going to
In the
tell you
thumbnail, I
offline,
put
but yes.
red pill, blue pill.
Mhm.
So for a brief moment, let's discuss the how do you make a decision in politics.
Well, the first thing, my first rule of thumb: never trust a politician and never trust the media. You know you're being lied to when their lips are moving. So that's just
You know,
my first
I
rule of
think
thumb.
I think almost everybody would agree with that sentiment, and I think because okay, if you look at there have been polls done that look at I mean, you just look at the confidence level in Congress in general. It's like 11% or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But then people vote for their own representative over and over and over
Oh yeah,
again
look at Cocaine
because for
Mitch.
some
I
reason
mean,
there's
you know.
this disconnect between they're always lying, but not my
Mhm.
guy.
Yeah,
It's like an abusive
you know,
relationship.
it is an abusive relationship. It's exactly.
Well,
It's
you know,
not
it
like
is
an abusive
exactly an
relationship.
abusive
It's
relationship.
exactly an abusive relationship because
Jeez.
they
They're
abuse
all
and
like
abuse and
they're like
abuse.
pimps, man.
Yeah. Pimps.
Look at all the good things I do for you. Give me the money.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. No, I mean, no, it's actually funny. I was just listening or just hearing a poll recently, and I don't know the exact numbers, but for some reason, I guess when it comes to Democrats in office, of course, they have a disapproval rating that's through the roof when it comes to Republicans and independents. I mean, we're talking like 70, 80%, 90% of Republicans don't trust. But when it comes to the approval rating, um, by Democrats, it's up in the 70% range for approval and 30 something or 20 something in the disapproval range, which is kind of crazy because when you look at the Republicans, you would think it would be similar about Republicans because the
Republicans trust
Democrats
their own representatives
hate.
less.
Yeah, exactly. It's like 60%. It's less than 50% approval across the board, but they continue to vote for him. Like I said, look at Mitch McConnell. There's a perfect example. The guy's been,
And there's
hold on there, Democrats. We've
uh,
been doing this for 500 years, and we're just telling you to slow down. You got a little too close to socialism. You can go a little farther next time. Bye. Anyway,
yeah, I think there's reasons behind that. It's okay. So don't trust the politician because they're lying. So how do you then make
so
a
how do you make a
decision?
decision? Okay, how do you make a decision? Well,
You don't trust
honestly,
the
I
media.
think
Why don't you trust the media, Dennis?
because they all lie. They all lie. Every last one of them.
Can I tell a
So
quick story
if you're
about
gonna look,
when I lost my faith
all right,
in
let
the
me see if
media?
it looks inappropriate. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love this story. If it's the same story that I'm thinking about,
Doesn't Trump do that a lot with his hands there? You know,
he does
holding out
this.
like this.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge. It's huge. Got to do like this. This is gonna be the hugest, huge thing in the whole wide world because we're the best. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's a horrible
So
Trump accent.
so
I got the right color though, the orange.
I've always like we come from a conservative family, but I've always been an independent guy. Like
Mm,
I do not want to be attached to one of the parties because I don't
yeah.
trust either one of them. So I
Hmm.
tend to go and I say if you're if you're in a certain district where 70 or 80% of the people are going to vote one way, you almost feel like, well, if I'm not going to vote, well, it really doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So you can then more easily vote your conscience and be like, I'm going to represent somebody who I think shares my values actually.
Vote
But
libertarian, and then go
uh,
lose anyway,
not
right?
necessarily libertarian. I usually vote Constitution
I'm
Party if I go that
just
route.
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But we had a moment. It was there was a big rally. We were actually on vacation, and there was a big rally that was being planned. And I said, I kind of like to go see what it's about, and just kind of hear what they have to say, listen up, and kind of check it out. So we go to this place. We go to we were in Reno, and
Ooh,
the rally was being held around the city civic center, right, or the city capitol, whatever it was called. Big
the capital.
grounds, park like, right? And so I guess that, yeah, Reno is the state
No,
capital as well, right?
is Reno the state capital?
I don't remember,
Yeah, I think
but
so. I think
anyway,
so. Yeah, yeah.
um, big grounds,
It's
park
the biggest
like.
little city in the world. I know that.
There's hundreds of people out there. I mean, there's
Mm,
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and the people are driving by in their cars and honking, and there's signs, and there's like guys doing sculptures in the park, and I mean there's all kinds of stuff, and there's families, and there's people being polite, and it's like um very 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 cool vibe, very fun
mhm.
atmosphere, very much like, hey, we got something to say, but we're going to be respectful and decent.
Yeah.
And then we went back to our hotel room in the evening, and we flipped back and forth between the local channel and two of the major cable channels. On one of the major cable channels, they were talking about these similar rallies that were being held or throughout the country, and they looked similar to what we saw. On the other major cable channel and on the local news, we got a picture that was a hard angle away from the building on like two or three people on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all you. Yeah, thanks for the correction,
Carson
Dad.
City. Thanks,
Carson
Dad.
City,
He's
Nevada.
our live fact checking on this show. We're the best. Eat your heart out, YouTube and Facebook. We got live fact
with
checking
actual facts.
with
So
actual facts.
they were
Exactly.
looking at this corner away from the crowd. So they took the camera off the crowd, went to like the handful of people on the corner, and said, "This is the rally." And then
Yeah.
not only did they distort what the view was of how many people were there, I mean, these are people who are in the media, and they were literally mocking and ridiculing just everyday people with
Yep.
pretty disgusting language.
Yep.
What they could get away with on live TV.
Yeah.
And I'm like, from that day on, it was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
you are liars, and I
Yep.
cannot trust anything you show me. And
Exactly.
now they've they've continued that trend
Oh, it's
of,
gotten worse. It's
let's cut
gotten
in
worse.
real tight so it looks
Yeah.
like there's a big crowd when there's not a big crowd,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
then let's pull out real wide when we want to
Yeah.
show you how small this
Mhm.
crowd
Yeah.
is. Like,
Exactly.
man, it's such manipulation. Anyway, that was
Everything
the
they
day I
do is
lost my faith
manipulation.
in the media,
Yeah. I
which
mean,
means now I do my best to go to original sources, and I look at
mhm.
reports from both from several different media outlets before I
Yeah.
start to form an opinion on something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you want to get red pilled very quickly, go to original sources. I'm telling you, go read the bills that are coming out of Congress. You want to get red pilled quick? Red pilled, by the way, for those
Jeez.
who don't know, red pilled means that you're like Neo and you're coming out of the Matrix. Okay, it means you're going to see the world the way it is for the first time, maybe,
Mm,
and well, not maybe, but and then whew,
yeah.
your perspective will change. I mean, but look at they've gone completely off the deep end. You want to you talked, that was a great story, by the way. That was Tea Party, if I'm not mistaken, right? Tea Party rally, something like that
It
back
was a
in
Tea Party rally.
yeah.
It continued too because Sharon was actually in DC, and
Oh gosh, yeah.
went just walked from her hotel to her office to work for the week that she was there, and
Mm-hmm.
walking to the office, and there was a Tea Party rally happening, and she was getting handed business cards from people who were running for office who were African American. But
Mm-hmm.
then she goes back on the news and watches the news reports about how all these people are racist, and they were only old white people there.
Yeah,
She's like, I
only old
have a
white people.
business
Mm-hmm.
card in my hand
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
a 30 or less or younger African American dude who wants to run for office.
Oh yeah. I mean, look. I mean,
It's not the truth.
it's all lies. It's all not the truth. I mean, and you can tell the more they use the racism card, the more they're failing. So now they have to switch. You're either racist or you're sexist or you're a
Let's just say
fascist
phobic. Let's
or
just say phobic.
you're phobic, which is totally. I mean, come on, phobic,
Yeah.
seriously, an irrational, an unexplained, irrational fear. Come on, give me a break. Are you serious right now? And
Okay.
and what, you're banning books? Get this, and this one. it got me the other day. It got me because it was on the website that I use as a primary tool for teaching news into English to English
Okay.
learners, right? And they take news articles from regular sources and they just kind of make them easier for English
Okay.
learners. This article, and I have to do a video about it because it's just it talks about book banning in the United States. And I'm like, book banning? Really? When did we start banning books in the United States? I don't remember any banning of books in the United
That
States.
has been one of the recent claims.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some librarian somewhere saying, well, there's people protesting, and they're using language like right wing to talk about parents, extremist to talk about moms and dads, attack. They say they use the verb attack. Why? Because they came to a meeting and they said they really don't like you carrying books called gender queer, which, by the way, this is in school libraries, public libraries, and other places where little kids and young children can read it. Now, I don't know if you know about genderqueer, but if you go on Amazon.com and you look up, I will not be putting the link for that book. Guaranteed, it has a warning that if you're under 18, you shouldn't buy the book. You can't buy the book. So if you're
Hmm.
under 18, you can't buy it from Amazon. Then why would they put it in a book in the bookshelf at a library at a school? And then when people complain about it, they say you're trying to ban books. No, it's not banning books. It's called doing the right thing.
Yeah.
This is a
The
book
book is
that's a
still available.
graphic novel. It's a graphic novel of children, of people doing adult things available for children. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
There's
but
reasons
yes,
to look
but
at that.
anyway, don't
And on
trust
the
the
other
media.
side, on the other side, several books that have been available for decades were removed for purchase anywhere by the publisher, but that wasn't
Mhm.
called book banning.
No. Yeah. It's not book banning when the publisher does it.
So
You have to go find it.
there's a lot of heated rhetoric going on. There's a lot of things going
Mhm.
on. So let's get down to how do you actually make the choice
That's
other
my
than
point. So
finding
how do
the
you make the
truth?
choice? You got to go
What do
find
you
the
do?
truth. You have to go find the truth. You have to surround yourself with people who are like-minded and watch shows like this, Dad Save the Internet, because we are going to help you we're going to try to help save the internet one dad at a time, and mom. And no, but no, seriously, by educating yourself, by opening your mind and getting out of the out of the matrix, as your thumbnail alluded, you're going to be able to see more clearly. And once you can see more clearly, but my rule of thumb when it comes to making decisions with politics, when it points to freedom, then I support it. If it
That's
points to any
generally
other
my yeah.
direction,
I follow that
I don't.
largely. If
So there we
if it is
go,
something
dropping f
if it
bombs
is
again.
something yeah. So I was thinking this through, and I was thinking every person is imperfect,
Mhm.
and they're either going to make mistakes or they're going to intentionally do the wrong thing, right,
Mhm.
for their own gain versus for the good of others. So
Yeah.
those are the two main dangers of people. So when you give someone power, does the odds of them being tempted to use that for their own gain increase or decrease? Well, it's going to probably usually increase. Yeah. All systems are subject to entropy and
Yeah.
to loss of energy and loss of perfection. So even
Mhm.
if you have the best system humans can develop, it's going to still have problems with it. It's going to have less than perfect efficiency, and it's going to have entropy. And so
Mhm.
all of these would be arguments against more government power.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
anything that gives more power to the government for whatever reason, I'm going to be very, very suspicious of.
Vote
Now,
against
I
it.
know that
I'm not
people
as
will come back
suspicious.
and,
No, I mean no. That's all.
well, I mean, there are certain instances of like, hey, there are certain instances of like protecting children, for instance. So if the government comes in and says, yeah, you can't teach highly sexualized content to children, that would be an instance of, yes, that would be a good law because that is a
Okay.
moral law.
Yeah.
So it's like that would be
Mhm.
appropriate. But in a case of just, well, we're the government and we say, you have to do this immoral thing. Of course not. Or you can't do this moral thing. Of course not. That's
Mhm.
wrong. So more
Yeah.
freedom, usually better. almost always better. Um, and the other what I would look at is when you say that
Almost
politicians are always lying, is
whenever their lips are moving.
is I had somebody say to me in the last election season, the Democrats, and this is from where they were coming from, the Democrats say that they care for the poor, and so I will vote for them even if they're wrong, or even if they don't successfully care for the poor.
They
And I think that
say they
is
care for the poor. Wow.
and that is it. It was
Talk about a disconnect.
for this person, that was the only thing they cared about, was the Democrats sound like they care for the poor.
hmm hmm Yeah.
If the war on poverty that the Democrats have been waging for over 50 years had worked,
hmm
we would not have the problems we have with poverty in this country.
Of
And
course.
so
Of
therefore,
course.
I would say
hmm
always
No, because it is
evaluate.
a war on poverty, and they are winning. They are fighting the poor people to make them more poor, and they're winning. There you
That's
go.
what I would
War on
say.
poverty.
Always evaluate what the outcomes have been of any
hmm
government program. And
Yeah.
if the people who are pushing that government program keep pushing it, even when it's proven to be a failure,
hmm
why would you vote for them? They're in it for their own
Yeah. Well,
power.
not only that, but I mean, take everything, take things to the logical conclusion for the policies that they're proposing as well. I mean,
Mhm.
uh, you know, there's such a divide in the United States, and anybody can see it. It's like it's not like Mason-Dixon line divide because it's not a physical boundary, but it's definitely an idealized and ideological divide.
Right.
Um, uh, so you have to take a step and look at what is going on. I love this is one of my favorite Latin mottos of any university in the world. I didn't go to the school, but the Merchant Marine Academy, the United States Merchant Marine Academy, they wouldn't let me in because I was too old. So I went to Maine Maritime, which was a better school anyway. But anyway, their motto is acta non verba, actions, not words. And you should judge everybody by that. Judge everybody that you know and that you and what politicians especially, but not I mean everybody that you meet, especially if they have power. What do they say and what do they do? And watch what they do because that's what's more important than anything else. And look at what the plans that they have implemented so far. I mean, people say if I were to say that the Democrats and the the WEF people, the World Economic Forum people, are some kind of cabal trying to depopulate the world, people would look at me like I was crazy. So I don't say that. Instead, I say look at what their policies lead to: cutting energy, cutting fuel, cutting food. I mean, cutting food production in Europe, cutting food production in the United States. Come on, and you're muted. By the way, you're muted. Um, these
Cutting economic
actions,
activity.
yeah, cutting economic activity. These actions are anti-human. They will lead, whether they are anti-human intentionally or just
Or in
as a
consequence.
consequence. That's what they are, and they will
Yeah.
lead to death. Not only
Yeah.
that, they'll lead to a smaller population. Democrats all of them support abortion up to 9 months, up to 40 weeks. If you don't believe me, read the bills that they put forth in Congress. It's in there, 40 weeks. They're all supporting this transgender sexual transformation stuff uh, 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 on children, where children can no longer have children of their own, not to mention regular lives. And all of that leads to less people on the planet. So
All
tell
those
me
people.
again how, I mean, not to mention the
So
suffering and things like that. So,
again,
so look at what they do, not what they say. Anyway.
yeah, that would be it. I would say look at what they do, and if you, in order to make a good judgment for your own choice, you have to know your values.
hmm Yeah,
And so if you
absolutely.
care about people, especially people who are at some level of disadvantage economically or in power or representation, whatever you want to say,
hmm
go back and look at what happened. What was it like 50 years ago? I
Yeah.
mean, Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder are famous for talking about how black families were actually doing better in a family perspective than white families were in the 50s.
Yeah.
They may have been facing Jim Crow and some awful things, but there were more black children born into families back then
Yeah.
than
And
there
much
are now.
and yeah, and so much lower crime rate, a lot lower crime rate, a lot lower
Yeah.
instances of drug use and drug abuse and things like that. So yeah,
So a lot of the
huge.
things that have been done in order to help people have ended up long-term hurting people, and that's the kind of stuff of yet they just keep coming up with the same problems and the same issues, and it usually means more power for
Yeah.
the people at the top. And so yeah,
Yeah.
you know, let's
Mhm.
let's look at our values and look at whether somebody's words and actions actually match up.
Yes, I agree, Dad. Thomas Sowell is absolutely brilliant, and and time to attribute another quote incorrectly. I believe it was Abraham Lincoln who said to do the same thing over and over is no, it wasn't Abraham Lincoln. What was it? What's the quote go? Something like the definition of insanity
Definition of
is
insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, usually
thank
attributed
you.
to Einstein, I think.
Attributed to Einstein, but I often hear it attributed to Benjamin Franklin as well.
Mm.
But who knows? I think it was Abraham Lincoln.
Anyway, well, that was
If you can find the right quote, who really said that? Leave it in the comments. We got to go. I got to go.
Notice how Dad stuck around for the politics once he said he was leaving.
Yeah, he said I'm leaving. All right, Dad says it's
And
Einstein.
again,
We'll see. I don't know if it is Einstein.
for me, this was not like I do the same level of attempted research as much as I can on the Republicans as I do on the Democrats. It's just that for me personally, the Democrats have over and over and over again have proven that they oppose my values and that everything they're trying to do is against my values. So, they've left me no choice but to just say, you know what, I'm going to write you off, and maybe I'll vote for a Republican, or maybe I'll vote for somebody else.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
those are now my only choices.
Yeah,
to
well, and
potentially
actually,
even consider.
you're starting to see a bit more choice in the Republican Party. You're starting to see. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but Donald Trump's not his approval rating, but the endorsement rate, the people who have been winning, it's what 100 plus people won. He's got like a 97% endorsement rate for a win rate for his endorsements for this election cycle. It's been growing.
I'm not entirely sure what that means.
What it means is what it means is that the MAGA candidate, or what is it? Obama? No,
right.
Biden call them Maggie, the Maggie candidates, the Maggie supporters. He said,
super duper ultra mega.
Yeah, ultra Maggies, right? Gosh. Anyway, it means that there are people who are bucking the system because the traditional Republicans don't like Trump. And that's clear by their actions. You can see that it's very clear. And you look at,
I know
mean,
that
you look at the
so
Republicans,
there's a correlation, but I don't. There's a correlation, but I don't know enough of the data to know if that would be a causation, or if it's just that whole idea of, man, there are a lot of people out there. Remember, Congress has less than a 15% approval rating or something like that.
Well, that's true.
It's like 11%.
But I mean,
percent.
But
no surprise, people are looking for different.
People are looking for different in the Republican side. They're not looking for different in the Democrat side. They're all voting for the same people in the Democrat side. The Republicans, on the other hand, their primaries predominantly went to the Maggie candidates.
Maggie.
Well, that was a joke. Joe Biden calls them the
okay. I was like,
Maggie extremists, right? Maggie.
Interesting coincidence. That's our grandma's birth name.
Exactly. Right? It's crazy. Do you think she might be called a Maggie extremist? Maybe so. Anyway,
maybe,
dude, it's time to wrap this up. Unfortunately,
it is. And we went way long on that little bonus section. So
that little bonus section
with us. It
Yeah,
was
thanks for
fun.
sticking around.
It was real.
And
I
it
had
was
fun.
real fun. It was real fun. I mean, normally the joke is, I mean, we've been saying for years, it's been real and it's been fun, but it hasn't been real fun. But I'll tell you, it's
All
been real
right.
fun. It's been real fun for me.
You can join us in 2 weeks at 12 p.m. Mountain for Dad
And
Save the Internet, episode 106.
wow, we're on 106 already.
106.
Jesus. That's 12 p.m. Mountain time in the United States, 3 a.m. Korea time in Korea, 2 a.m. in Taiwan, and most of China,
And as
maybe Hong
usual,
Kong.
try to behave until then, or you're grounded.
Stay out of trouble. All right.
Love you, bro.
Love you too, bro. Bye.